Part one of this episode generally dealt with the general importance of the family unit. If you haven't watched that episode, I recommend you do. You do watch it before watching this one, just because they kind of sort of dovetail into each other. But let's dive into the children part of the family unit, for this is an incredibly important subject for our society. Welcome to this next episode of the Coleman Nation. Let's go. I'll start off by talking about education and the very helpful aspects of my own education. Many schools have work-study programs. In my case, it was the only way I could have participated in a fairly expensive boarding school program when I was 15. My parents were not affluent and could not afford to send me there, but they wanted me to take advantage of their summer programs at this one particular school. The solution was to attend school under a work-study program. I greatly enjoyed the study, especially the subjects of literature and travel. We went on several trips that were exciting for me as a teenager. The work part of the work study was serious manual labor. I was doing breakfast prep, which meant getting up at 5 a.m. and cooking eggs and pancakes for 300 to 400 kids and staff. At the end of the day, I was the one who had to wash up dishes and silverware when everyone was done eating. Often I was up until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And I will be honest with you, there were probably some sort of, child labor laws, but it was the 80s, so things were a little bit different. But when I was going through it, I hated that time of my life. But it turned out to be one of the most valuable. I learned an enormous amount about work ethic and discovered just how much I can accomplish in a single day. Looking back, I realized that if I hadn't done my job, some 400 people wouldn't have eaten on any given day. The next change I made to my career choice resulted from something I believed should be part of all education in the process of making one's way into society. And I talked about it in the last episode, which was an apprenticeship. If there were a way to create an environment where apprenticeships were available to all children, either during high school or shortly after they graduated, it would provide them a lot more ability to gather the information they need to make correct long-term decisions for setting their personal goals. It would also provide an understanding of how to interact and provide value to society through employment. When I was 16, my high school had a phenomenal apprenticeship program. Every kid in my high school had an elective apprenticeship that the school endorsed. So they had to be vetted and approved by the school. And the school would match the student up with a parent who had a job in the field the student potentially wanted to enter. At that time, I decided to go into software development. We had apprenticeship Mondays during which students worked in their chosen apprenticeship. On Monday, I attended roll call at school and was then driven to the software company where I was assigned to the person who would oversee my apprenticeship. The apprenticeship allowed me to, quote unquote, test drive many different areas within the company. I worked in the mailroom, assisted in marketing, and assembled information kits on software products. I worked in manufacturing, packaging, and generating software. Software was on tapes or discs back in those days, years before being able to download from the cloud. So I got to hang out with the programmers and even sat down with the company's founder and CEO for an interview. Every role I experienced within the software company was learnable, and the career as a software programmer was a great match for me. I still had aspirations in the music field, however, but that apprenticeship was absolutely incredible. Another benefit of apprenticeships can be demonstrated by my own personal experience. The apprenticeship I took advantage of during high school provided me with job experience that I could include on my own resume. Because of that experience, upon graduation from high school, I was immediately hired by the software company where I had apprenticed. After being employed there for 18 months, I was able to save up enough money to go to college. More on that in just a second. But apprenticeships, they're one way of preparing young people for the real world as they complete their education. It provides context, value, and evaluation of all the information one has received during schooling. Another way a young person can be introduced to adulthood is through religious charity work. The Mormon Church provides an outstanding example of this. Young people go out and perform missionary work throughout the world. This often affords them the opportunity to learn new languages and develop a work ethic. In the Jewish community, teenagers often take advantage of the opportunity to go to Israel and work in kibbutzes, which are collective community farms. I had the opportunity to visit a kibbutz on a recent trip to Israel. It was wholesome and an enlightening experience of the culture, and the camaraderie that can be built in such a self-contained environment was unbelievable. Now, this can also happen through non-religious charity work. The only caution I would offer about that is that some ideologies may not have the best intentions for society at heart. So choose wisely and work with someone who's a good mentor to help you select those types of things if that's the direction that you want to go in. However, some form of volunteer work, whether religious or non-religious, can be incredibly beneficial in introducing a young person to the world. I had another experience that might be considered unique, but will serve as an example of social contribution. After earning enough money at the software company, I decided to attend college, in my case, Berklee College of Music in Boston. For whatever reason, I had never heard of student loans, and besides that, I didn't think that I would need a full 4-year education to play music. So I never applied for a student loan. I needed to earn a living while I was there. I worked as a teacher's aide at a Boston middle school to earn money while I was attending college. I helped teach students how to read and assisted them with basic math concepts. I didn't have anywhere else to go when I was done for the day, so I would stay after school and contribute to after-school programs. It was a great experience. I had a chance to be on the other side of the educational machine and teaching kids. I actually know some of the people I helped and reconnected, with some of the students. I mean, now they're in their 40s, right? And I've seen them grow up to have great families and be successful. It's kind of cool to reflect and realize I might have had, just even a little bit of a positive influence on those kids, having them grow into adults that are valuable and contributing to society. Another bridge from childhood to adulthood can be the military. In other countries, such as Israel, youth are required to serve 2 years of military service. Some years back, I had a friend from Israel who told me all kinds of stories about serving in the Israeli army as a young woman. The many lessons she learned about functioning within a group and being part of a team were incredible. I later reflected on it in my own life and wondered how I might have turned out if I had done that myself. If I had joined the military, it would have been after I graduated from high school. But right then, the Berlin Wall was coming down and the world was experiencing a sense of relief and peace. I have many friends who served in various branches of the U.S. military, Navy SEALs, Marines, Special Forces, and Green Berets, and who have had, have a certain standard for working and functioning as a team. I wonder what our country would look like if young people were required to serve a compulsory 2 years in the military. Note that I'm speaking here of creating an ideal society for the future, not painting a picture of kids being carted off to the meat grinder or of the front lines of some war on the other side of the planet where they shouldn't be. But there is something to be said, though, for being part of a military that takes pride in its nation and understands the importance of its defense. There are other nations or groups out there that don't have humanity's best interests at heart. An example of, this specifically is the ethnic group known as the Hutus in Rwanda, an African country. In 1994, the Hutus hunted down and killed over 500,000 men, women, and children of the Tutsi ethnic minority in what is now known as the Rwandan Genocide. It is essential for children. And by the way, I don't mean to talk down. Many of you guys probably know these types of things. It's all around the internet and so forth. The reason why I bring this up is that some people don't. Some people, history is being forgotten with every new generation. And so if I, seem a little bit nonchalant in the way that I'm describing this, it's just a matter of look, let's look at some of these things and investigate it and research it. So anyways, that's the only point, is that we want to be able to understand and know about these types of things, especially understanding the genocides that man has committed against each other. So it is essential for children growing up to understand that their country needs to be able to defend itself from aggressors. They should understand the kinds of brutalities that can occur and what it means to maintain freedom within their nation, especially here in the United States. No one wants to go to war and die. That goes without saying. If there's a possibility of perpetual peace, that's something all of us want. I think that there's a small subset of psychotics that don't want that, but that's a different episode for a different time. But this, in fact, the whole purpose of my book, which is coming out called The Goal of a Nation, that's where this episode comes from. And it's aiming toward a society in which perpetual peace is achievable. Looking 300 years into the future, we're talking about several generations of families from where we are now. What would those generations look like? What would each of those generations be able to contribute? Such contribution is one reason we must have purposes that tend to move society in a similar direction. It is why the space program was so important in the 1960s. It wasn't just the Russians versus the Americans competing to get to the moon. It was two societies that had just come out of a horrific war trying to engage in something highly constructive. We can, of course, align ourselves with war, but that will have a bleak result 300 years down the line. You can already see the trajectory of that. You might have some buy-in with war at a local level, but 300 years from now, all we'll be left with is a smoking ball of rubble, and we will not have gotten off this rock. Alternatively, if we can align ourselves with leaving the planet, thereby increasing the chances of the species' survival while also fostering long-term intelligence and competence, well, that's a winning equation in my book. It's the only path that makes any sense, as opposed to society slowly but surely coming to a halt, which is the complete opposite of freedom. In fact, totally stopping is the very definition of death. As you can see, the family unit is not just about randomly having babies, but also fulfilling long-term generational goals. It would be a tremendous exercise for today's youth to reflect on potential goals for their generation and consider positive ways the current generation can influence the attainment of those goals. Having a long-term vision instilled in our youth near the tail end of their formative years would be tremendously positive for civilization as a whole. Earlier, I discussed the transfer of tribal knowledge down the generations. It's another power that the family unit possesses. It means the passing on of the baton as children become adults. Tribal knowledge might include families knowing how to grow their own food. It has recently been pointed out that if families learn how to produce their own food, we would have a much healthier society. This was the kind of knowledge that was passed down in earlier generations. Fathers passed down vital skills in farming and hunting, and mothers, in addition to performing many other roles, passed down knowledge of how to store and prepare food. With today's technology, including YouTube and the ready availability of knowledge, the lines have blurred as to who wears these particular hats or performs these functions. We can assign roles to either partner, father or mother, but we cannot forget the various jobs that would be required to create a strong family and a decentralized model. The advent of modern technology has given us the means to pass that knowledge along at the speed of light. Every imaginable piece of human history is being written and stored in real time and can be accessed instantly by anyone. We have the same knowledge transfer, but without the previously required lag and distance. Other tribal knowledge would include an understanding of the family unit itself and its functioning. Unfortunately, with the nuclear family's degeneration in today's society, parents feel less comfortable passing on the traditional roles that have been held in place for thousands of years. What is the value of marriage and having a family? Parents should have these conversations with their children. Even if a child does not want to pursue being a parent early on, the responsibility and value of being a parent needs to be conveyed to children as they mature into adults. As outlined earlier in this episode, children need to be educated on the responsibilities associated with each family role. The tribal knowledge of the family unit needs to be passed down from generation to generation so the family unit will continue. We'll only continue to have a prosperous society if everyone understands their role within it. Let's take up another aspect of the family, and that is marriage. When it comes to marriage, it is an unfortunate fact that the view of marriage has devolved in the present society to simply being a tax break. A friend of mine described the actual value of marriage beautifully and amazingly several years ago. He was quite young when he decided to get married and has been married to the same woman since he was a teenager. Today, they have incredible children and a remarkable example of a strong family unit. Since he got married when most of his friends were still living single lives, his peers gave him a lot of grief about his decision to marry so young. Didn't he want to be able to play the field and, quote unquote, sow his wild oats? My friend's view was quite different from that of his peers. He realized that the overwhelming amount of choice in being single was the opposite of freedom. He said that when he could fully commit to his wife 100% and forsake all others, as is mentioned in the vow, and take the responsibility of being a husband to heart, he truly understood freedom. It was the freedom to be himself entirely with another person. Cutting out all other options meant there was only one clear path. When I heard that view, I was amazed. I didn't think anyone understood marriage that way. I believe that if we conveyed such a view to our children, the wonderful blessings that building a family can have and how integral it is to building a strong society, people would take marriage more seriously and consider having more children. The decision to have fewer or no children is profoundly impacting society. Elon Musk and many others have pointed out that society is breaking down not because of population growth, as some would have us believe, but because of population decline. Such a decline was evident in Russia in the early 20th century and more recently in the 1980s and 1990s in Japan. When a country has a population aging out of the workforce and not enough young people to replace them, it ends up with too few young people having to take care of too many elderly people. The young lose the option to work. The scenario is exacerbated by the fact that they're not increasing their population. It's sad to see that Japan's culture is in danger of disappearing. A decline is also seen in China, which limits the family size by law, and families killing off female babies because of the value of having a son. If we strengthen the family unit once again and empower it to the level that existed some 150 or 200 years ago, we would be well positioned to move forward into the next 300 years with ease. But these are just my opinions on the family unit and how strong it needs to be in order to carry us into a prosperous future. But what is your opinion about the family unit? How do you feel about the way children should be raised and educated? Your opinions are important to me, so please don't hesitate to leave a comment and share your thoughts below. Also, if you enjoy this episode, please like it and subscribe so you know when new episodes are posted, and click the bell to be notified of those new episodes. So thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next episode of the Coleman Nation. Take care.